On a cold, barren planet at the edge of the galaxy, an alien princess named Solara lay sprawled in the dirt, her once beautiful gown torn and stained. Her golden skin, now dull and pale, barely reflected the light of the dim sun. Her long, silvery hair clung to her face, a tangled mess that mirrored her life. She had once been the beloved heir to a grand empire, but now she was nothing more than a forgotten, discarded soul. Solara's heart ached with hunger, her stomach growling in protest. It had been days since she had last eaten, and the only thing left to drink was the bitter, stagnant water she had found in a cracked stone well. She barely had the strength to move anymore, but she couldn't afford to rest. Not now. Not when her enemies had cast her aside to die alone. The laughter echoed in her ears, cruel and mocking. She had heard it countless times since her fall. From Grace, a reminder that she was no longer the powerful princess she once was. The same voices that had praised her for her strength and beauty were now the ones that laughed as they watched her starve to death. Look at her, the mighty princess, reduced to nothing more than a beggar. One voice taunted. She thought she was better than us. Another voice chimed in, dripping with contempt. She deserves this. Let her die out here just like the trash she is. Solara closed her eyes, the words stinging her ears. She had heard this before, but it never hurt less. It was the price she paid for a single mistake. She had failed the empire she once served so proudly, and they had turned on her without hesitation. The betrayal had been swift, but it was the abandonment that hurt the most. She had been exiled to this lonely planet as punishment, left to fend for herself without the resources or allies she once commanded. The planet, once a beautiful, thriving world, had become a graveyard. Its cities were now ruins, and its forests were long gone, stripped away by time and neglect. All she had was the wind and the endless sky, neither of which offered her any comfort. Every day she fought to survive, hoping against hope that someone would find her. But the days stretched on, and no one came. Not even a trace of a passing ship. She was truly alone. A sudden noise broke through her thoughts, a rustling, faint at first, then growing louder. Solara's heart raced as she forced herself to sit up, her legs trembling beneath her. She didn't know if it was a predator or perhaps just the wind playing tricks on her, but she had no choice but to investigate. Weakly, she pushed herself to her feet, her body protesting with every movement. She stumbled toward the sound, her eyes scanning the barren landscape. The air was thick with dust, making it hard to see far ahead. She squinted against the harsh winds, hoping for a glimpse of something, anything. Then she saw it, a figure in the distance, moving slowly through the dust. The silhouette was unmistakable, though it was unlike any of the alien creatures she had known. It was human. Her heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Had someone finally come for her? She stumbled forward, her legs shaking with exhaustion. Each step felt like it might be her last, but the thought of a human, the thought of someone who might help her, kept her going. The figure came closer, and she could now see the details. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a simple flight suit. His face was obscured by a helmet, but his body language was relaxed, confident, as if he had seen the desolation of this planet before. The human stopped when he saw her. Solara's breath hitched as she felt a sudden surge of hope. He didn't seem surprised by her presence. Instead, he looked at her with something akin to curiosity. He lowered his helmet, revealing a pair of kind green eyes that met hers without judgment. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. Solara's lips parted, but no words came out. She had forgotten how to speak, how to trust. The human's simple question stirred something inside her, a longing she hadn't felt in what seemed like forever. She nodded weakly, her throat dry. "I've been looking for survivors," he continued, his tone soothing. "You're the first one I've found." She wanted to tell him that she wasn't just a survivor, she was a princess. But the words felt useless now. No one cared about that anymore. Her empire had cast her aside. She was nothing more than a weak, starving woman lying in the dust. The man stepped closer, kneeling beside her. He didn't seem afraid. In fact, he looked concerned, as though he genuinely cared about her well-being. He reached out, offering her a canteen. "Here," he said softly. "Take a drink. You look like you need it." Solara hesitated, her mind racing. She hadn't trusted anyone in so long. But something about him felt different. There was no cruelty in his eyes, no disdain for her brokenness, only kindness. With trembling hands, she took the canteen, her fingers brushing his for a brief moment. She brought it to her lips and drank deeply, the cool water easing the burn in her throat. It was a small comfort, but it was enough to bring her a flicker of strength. When she lowered the canteen, the man smiled at her. "You look like you've been through hell," he said. "But you're still here. That counts for something." Solara's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever seen her as more than a failure. But this human, this stranger, saw her differently. He saw her as someone worth saving. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. He stood and offered his hand. "Because you need help. And I'm not leaving you here to die. Come with me. I'll take you somewhere safe." Solara stared at his outstretched hand. The offer seemed too good to be true, but something inside her, something she hadn't felt in so long, told her to trust him. She placed her hand in his, and with a gentle pull, he helped her to her feet. The moment she stood, she felt a strange surge of hope. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't alone. The laughter that had once haunted her faded into the distance, replaced by a quiet sense of possibility. The human's kindness had sparked something inside her, something she thought she had lost forever. As they walked together toward the human's ship, Solara knew one thing for certain. Her life wasn't over. Not yet. She had a chance to rebuild, to reclaim everything she had lost. And this time she wouldn't be doing it alone. Solara's heart beat faster as she stumbled beside the human. The ship, a small but sturdy vessel, stood in the distance, its silver surface glinting in the dim light of the alien sun. The human, his name was Lucas, had helped her up from the dirt and led her towards his ship with steady confidence. It was the first time in what seemed like forever that someone had cared enough to take her away from her misery. She couldn't believe it. She, the once proud princess of a mighty empire, was walking beside a stranger, a human, through the wasteland of a planet she had been abandoned to. It felt like a dream, like something she would wake up from at any moment. "Almost there," Lucas said over his shoulder, his voice calm and reassuring. Solara's eyes were heavy, and her legs ached. She could feel her body protesting, but she refused to stop. She had been so close to giving up, but this human, Lucas, had shown her that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for her after all. As they neared the ship, Solara took in the sight of it more clearly. It wasn't a grand warship or a majestic transport. It was a small functional craft, a light freighter that looked worn but well-maintained. She could see the faded paint, the little scratches and dents that came with years of use, but there was something about it that felt warm, like home. When they reached the ship, Lucas opened the hatch and motioned for her to enter. "After you," Solara hesitated, then slowly stepped inside. The interior was small but cozy, with soft lights that illuminated the clean, simple space. There was a cockpit at the front, a small kitchenette, and a set of bunks along one side. It wasn't much, but it was enough. More than enough, actually. It was the first place she had been that felt even remotely safe in a long time. Lucas followed her inside, closing the hatch behind them. "I'm going to get you some food and water. Just sit tight," he said, his voice warm. Solara nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over her. She moved to one of the bunks and sat down, resting her head against the wall. She closed her eyes for a moment, just trying to gather her thoughts. She hadn't let herself rest in so long. Every minute had been about survival. But now, with this human by her side, it felt as though the weight of the world had been lifted from her shoulders. Lucas returned quickly with a tray of food. The smell of it made her stomach growl loudly, and she blushed, embarrassed by how hungry she truly was. He placed the tray in front of her and sat down across from her. "It's not much, but it's something," he said, offering her a small smile. Solara looked at the food in front of her. It wasn't anything fancy, just a simple stew of vegetables and some kind of meat, but it smelled like the most delicious thing she had ever encountered. She picked up the spoon, her hands shaking slightly as she dug into the meal. The warmth of the food filled her body, and she closed her eyes as she savored each bite. "Thank you," she murmured after a few moments. Lucas watched her silently, his expression soft. "You don't need to thank me. You've been through enough. You deserve to eat." Solara looked up at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "Why are you helping me?" Lucas leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms as he stared at the ceiling. For a moment, "I guess I could ask you the same question, but I'm not going to. There's just something about—" Days passed as Solara continued her journey with Lucas aboard his ship. The world outside was vast and empty, but inside the small freighter, she found a quiet sense of comfort. It wasn't much, but it was safe. For the first time since she had been exiled, she felt like she wasn't completely alone. Lucas was kind, almost to a fault. Every action he took was filled with thoughtfulness. He made sure she had food and water whenever she needed it, and he even taught her how to operate the ship's controls, showing her how to navigate and adjust the systems. Solara was amazed at how patient he was with her. The knowledge of the stars, the systems, the ships, it was all so foreign to her. But Lucas was patient, explaining things again and again until she understood. "Don't worry about messing up," he would say. "We all start somewhere." At first, Solara had been wary, not sure whether she could trust him, but with each passing day, her doubts began to fade. Lucas's actions spoke louder than any words. He didn't ask for anything in return for his help. He didn't even seem to expect anything. His kindness was just there, a quiet force that made her feel like she mattered again. One evening, as they were sitting at the table sharing a simple meal, Solara looked across at him. The dim lights of the ship bathed his face in a soft glow. His eyes were bright, clear, and full of warmth, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Solara felt seen. "Why did you help me?" she asked, her voice quieter than usual. "I mean, you didn't have to. I'm a stranger to you." Lucas paused, setting down his fork. He didn't look at her right away, as if gathering his thoughts. Finally, he met her gaze and smiled. "Everyone deserves to be treated with respect," he said. "I didn't know who you were when I found you. I didn't know if you were a princess or a scavenger or just someone lost, but I knew one thing. I couldn't just leave you there. No one deserves to be treated the way you were." Solara felt a lump form in her throat. She had heard many things about humans, but she had never expected kindness like this. After all, she had been exiled by her own people. She had been cast aside by the very empire that had once praised her. They saw her as nothing more than a failure. But Lucas, he saw her as something worth saving. "I don't know what to say," Solara whispered, her voice catching. "You're the first one to show me kindness in so long. Everyone else, and they just laughed as I starved." Lucas's face softened. He reached across the table, placing a hand gently on hers. "You don't have to thank me. I just want to help, and I'll be here for as long as you need me." Solara looked down at their hands. The touch was warm, comforting, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel so alone. Her heart swelled with something unfamiliar, something soft and fragile, like a seed being planted in the dark soil of her heart. It was hope. Over the next few days, their routine settled into a rhythm. Lucas taught her more about the ship, and Solara found herself slowly becoming more comfortable with the controls. She never thought she would be capable of flying a ship, but with Lucas's help, she began to believe that maybe she could. One afternoon, as they soared through space, Lucas turned to her with a small smile. "Want to try flying the ship?" he asked. Solara blinked in surprise. "Me? Fly?" "Yep," Lucas said, standing up and motioning to the pilot's seat. "I think you're ready." Just follow my lead and we'll be fine." For a moment, Solara hesitated. She had always been told that her place was to rule, not to learn the practical skills that others had. Her people had expected her to be perfect, to be strong and unyielding. They hadn't taught her how to survive, only how to lead. But here, with Lucas, she felt like she could be more than just a princess. She could be someone who could learn, someone who could grow. With a deep breath, Solara stood and moved to the pilot's seat. She settled into the chair, her fingers brushing over the controls as she glanced at Lucas for guidance. He gave her a reassuring nod. "Ready when you are," he said. Solara hesitated only for a moment longer before she pressed a button. The ship hummed in response, and she felt a small thrill of excitement. She was flying a ship, something that had once seemed impossible. As she navigated the ship through the stars, she felt a sense of pride fill her chest. It wasn't just about flying the ship. It was about taking control of her life again. She wasn't a helpless princess. She wasn't the castaway they had tried to make her. She was Solara, and she was more than the label her past had put on her. "Not bad," Lucas said, his voice full of approval. "You've got the hang of this." Solara smiled, a real smile, one that reached her eyes. She looked out the window at the vastness of space. The stars seemed closer now, as if they were offering her a new path forward. There were no limits here, no rules that said she couldn't be more than what they had forced her to become. For the first time, she felt like she had a future that was hers to decide. Later that night, as the ship cruised through the galaxy, Solara sat in the small lounge area, gazing out at the stars. She didn't know where they were going, and she didn't care. She had spent so much time thinking about her past, about the betrayal and the cruelty of her people. But now she was beginning to look ahead. She was beginning to realize that the future wasn't something to fear. It was something to embrace. Lucas joined her in the lounge, sitting across from her with a thoughtful expression. He studied her for a moment before speaking. "I'm glad. You're starting to see that there's more to you than what happened before," he said quietly. Solara turned to him, surprised by his words. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Lucas said, "you're not the person they made you out to be. You're not just the exiled princess. You're someone who's stronger than they ever realized. Someone who can build something new." Solara felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time in so long, she felt like she could believe in herself again. She had spent so many years looking back, mourning the life she had lost. But now, with Lucas's kindness and the ship beneath her feet, she felt like she was ready to move forward. "I don't know where this will go," Solara said, her voice steady, "but I know that I want to find out. I want to see what I can become." Lucas smiled, a proud look in his eyes. "And I'll be right here with you, every step of the way." Days turned into weeks, and the journey through space became more than just survival for Solara. It became a path to something new, something that she had long since given up on, the hope of a future. With each passing day, she grew stronger. The hunger that once gnawed at her insides had been replaced by something else, determination. And it was all thanks to Lucas. He was always there, always patient, always kind. There were no strings attached, no hidden motives. He simply wanted to help her, and she was beginning to understand what that really meant. She had been taught for so long that kindness was a weakness, a tool to be used for manipulation, but here, with Lucas, it felt like a strength. She felt like she could breathe again. One morning, as the ship glided through a star system, Solara found herself sitting at the controls, her fingers expertly moving across the buttons and screens. Lucas had taught her how to pilot the ship, and now she felt comfortable handling it on her own. It was a small victory, but it meant a lot. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was part of the journey. "You're getting better at this," Lucas said from behind her, his voice filled with approval. Solara smiled, her eyes still focused on the vastness of space in front of her. "I'm starting to think I could even teach someone else," she replied, her tone light. She was joking, but it was true. She had learned so much in such a short time. It felt good to know that she was capable of more than just surviving. Lucas laughed softly. Maybe one day. For now you've got this under control. He paused, then added, You know, I've been thinking about where we should go next. Solara turned slightly in her seat to look at him. Where? What's next for us? Lucas didn't hesitate. We could head to the colony in the Karen sector. It's a small community, but they're good people. They help those in need, and I think you'd find a place there. Solara considered his words. She knew that she couldn't hide from her past forever. There were still parts of her that feared what might happen if she returned to civilization. Would she be recognized? Would the people she had once ruled reject her as a failure? It was a terrifying thought. But then she remembered something Lucas had told her. You're not defined by what others think of you. You get to choose who you are. Her heart swelled at the thought. Maybe it was time to stop running from her past. Maybe it was time to find out who she could truly be without the weight of an empire hanging over her. I'll go with you, Solara said, her voice steady. To the Karen sector. I'll see what I can do there. Lucas gave her a nod of approval. I think that's a good choice. The ship's engines hummed steadily as they made their way toward the next chapter. As Solara looked out at the stars once more, she realized that there was a whole universe out there, waiting for her. For so long, she had been trapped by the mistakes of her past. But now, with Lucas by her side, she could finally start looking forward. Later that day, as they neared the Karen sector, Solara felt a sense of nervous excitement building inside her. She wasn't sure what to expect when they arrived. Would the people be kind, like Lucas had said? Or would they turn her away just like her people had done? Lucas seemed to sense her unease. It's not going to. Solara woke early the next morning, her body still adjusting to the quiet life in the Karen sector. The gentle sounds of the colony filtered in through the small window of her modest room. For the first time in years, she woke up without the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. No longer did she have to worry about political schemes, royal duties, or the expectations of an empire that had turned its back on her. Here, in this small colony, she was just another person, trying to make her way. As she got out of bed, she felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had been working at the repair shop for a week now, and the days had started to blend together in a peaceful rhythm. She helped fix anything that needed fixing, machines, vehicles, even the occasional broken piece of equipment from the colony's farms. The work wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, and it made her feel like she was contributing to something bigger than herself. Lucas had been right. This was what she needed. A purpose, a way to move forward. The day started like any other, but it didn't take long before the calm was broken. As Solara was finishing up a job at the repair shop, she noticed a small group of strangers standing at the entrance of the colony. They wore uniforms, dark, imposing outfits with the insignia of her former empire. Her heart skipped a beat. It had been so long since she had seen the flag of her people, and she never thought she would see it again, especially not here. She tried to shake off the feeling of dread that crept up her spine. Her past was behind her, wasn't it? She had no reason to fear these people, and yet there was something unsettling about their presence. One of the soldiers, a tall man with sharp eyes, approached her. He looked familiar, and for a moment, Solara couldn't place where she had seen him before. But then the memory came flooding back. The faces of the guards who had once stood at the gates of her palace, watching her every move. He was one of them. Princess Solara, the man said, his voice cold. I knew you were here. Solara's blood ran cold. She tried to remain calm, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. What do you want? The man's lips curled into a faint smile, but it wasn't kind. We've come to take you back. Your people need you. A wave of panic rose within Solara. No, I'm not going back. I'm not going to serve an empire. That cast me aside. The man's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. You don't have a choice. The empire has fallen into chaos. We need someone to restore order, someone strong, someone who commands respect. And you're the only one left who can do it. Solara shook her head, her hands trembling. I'm not your solution, I'm not your princess anymore. The soldier stepped closer, his tone turning harsh. That's where you're wrong, princess. Whether you want it or not, you are still the rightful heir to the throne. You belong to the Empire, and the Empire belongs to you. No, Solara said, her voice rising. I don't belong to anyone, I'm free now. The soldier's eyes darkened, and he took another step toward her. If you refuse, we'll bring you back by force. You don't get to choose this time. Solara took a step back, her heart racing. She had always known that the Empire might try to reclaim her one day, but she had hoped it would never come to this. She had hoped that she could truly escape the past and make a life for herself here, but now it seemed the past was unwilling to let go. That evening, Solara sat with Lucas at the small fire outside the repair shop. She hadn't told him everything yet. She hadn't told him about the soldiers, about the threat they posed. She didn't want to worry him, but she knew she couldn't keep this from him forever. As they sat in silence, Lucas finally broke it. You seem distant, he said quietly. What's going on? Solara hesitated, unsure how to explain. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on her chest. Finally, she spoke. They're here, she said, her voice barely a whisper. The soldiers, they found me. Lucas's expression darkened, his brow furrowing. What do they want? They want me to return to the Empire, Solara replied, her voice thick with emotion. They say they need me, that I'm the only one who can restore order. But I can't go back there. I can't. Lucas leaned forward, his eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her heart race. Then don't go. I don't have a choice, she said, shaking her head. If I don't go, they'll come after me. They'll destroy everything I've built here. This place, this life, it'll all be gone. Lucas's jaw tightened and he stood up, pacing for a moment. You don't have to do this. We can leave. We can go somewhere else. We don't have to face them. Solara stood, up as well, the anxiety growing inside her. Where would we go? They'll track me down. There's nowhere I can hide. I can't just run away. They'll never leave me alone. She paused, her gaze drifting to the distant stars above. She had spent so much time running, trying to escape from her past. But what if there was no escaping? What if the Empire would follow her wherever she went? I have to face them, Solara said, her voice quiet but determined. I have to go back, for the people here, for the future I want. I can't let them destroy this life. I won't let them take it from me. Lucas walked over to her, placing his hands gently on her shoulders. I'll be with you, every step of the way. You don't have to do this, alone. Solara's eyes filled with tears. I don't want to go back, Lucas, but I don't see any other choice. He nodded, his voice calm. We'll figure it out. Together. The next day, Solara stood at the gates of the colony, staring at the soldiers who awaited her. They had returned as she knew they would. The man from before, the one who had threatened her, was leading them. You've made the right choice, princess, he said, his voice full of false kindness. Come with us, and we'll make sure the Empire is restored. You'll have everything you've ever wanted. Solara took a deep breath, looking over her shoulder at the small colony, the people who had given her a new chance at life. She didn't want to leave them, but she knew she couldn't fight the Empire alone. Not yet. I'll come with you, she said, her voice steady. Lucas stepped forward, his expression resolute. You're not going anywhere with them, he said firmly. The soldier smirked, drawing a weapon. You're in no position to make demands. But Solara stepped between them, her eyes meeting Lucas's. It's not about fighting, Lucas. It's about saving what we've built here. I can't risk everything for myself. Lucas's gaze softened and he placed a hand on her arm. If you have to go, then I'll be there. But you don't have to do this alone. We'll face them together. Solara nodded, her heart heavy but resolute. She wasn't just running back to an empire. She was going to face her past head-on, with the strength she had found in herself, and with Lucas by her side. Solara stood at the gates of the colony, the cold morning air biting at her skin. The soldiers were waiting, their faces grim and unreadable. The man who had approached her before stood in front, his arms crossed, eyes fixed on her with a quiet intensity. His presence felt like a weight she couldn't escape, a reminder of everything she had left behind. Behind her, Lucas stood close, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. His warmth was a comfort in this moment, a grounding force that reminded her she wasn't alone, no matter what happened next. Solara looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude and love. "You don't have to do this," Lucas said softly. His voice was steady, but she could hear the concern in it. "I do," Solara replied, her voice strong, though there was a hint of sadness in her words. "I can't let them take away everything I've built here, not now. Not when it feels like I've finally found a place where I belong." Lucas didn't say anything, but the way he squeezed her shoulder told her he understood. He had always understood. This wasn't just about facing the Empire. It was about protecting the life she had worked so hard to rebuild. The soldier in front of them stepped forward, his voice commanding. "Princess Solara, it's time. The Empire has fallen into chaos, and we need you to return. Your people are lost without you. You can bring them back, you can restore order." Solara's heart clenched at his words. The idea of returning to the Empire seemed impossible. She had been exiled, abandoned, and now they wanted her back as if nothing had changed, as if they hadn't turned their backs on her when she needed them most. "I don't belong there anymore," Solara said, her voice quiet but firm. "I've seen the way people live now. I've seen the destruction they've caused. I can't go back and fix what's broken." The soldier's eyes narrowed. "You're still their princess, you're their hope." Solara's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She wasn't the princess they remembered. She wasn't the leader they had once crowned. But deep down, she understood something now. She could choose what kind of leader she wanted to be. She didn't have to follow the same path as before. She could create a new future, one built on the lessons she had learned and the people she had met along the way. "I'm not your princess anymore," she said, meeting the soldier's eyes. "I'm not anyone's hope. I'm a person, and I choose to live my life the way I want to, not the way you or anyone else tells me to." The soldier stepped back, his expression cold. "You're making a mistake." "I don't think so," Solara said, her voice steady. "The Empire is no longer my responsibility. The people here in this colony are my responsibility now, and I will protect them." There was a long silence. The soldier stared at her. For a moment, and for the first time, Solara saw something flicker in his eyes. Perhaps it was unsere.